Alrighty, gentlemen. Today we're going to be going through the age calculator for deliberate practice. I'd hoped to attend the deliberate practice session with you guys, but it's been a long week and I'm tired. I'm just really going to focus on two things in this walkthrough: naming and the progression, the steps. Because remember, TDD is a thinking tool. It's not just kind of a quality assurance, specification validation type technique. You know, there is that kind of side to it, but really it's a great vehicle for us to step into and drive around solving a problem, hence the gears model. So to start, I'm going to just walk through the test and then I'll show you the implementation afterwards. I start off with the method calculate given born today should return 0. Simplest case. Born today, I'm obviously 0. Really easy, simple thing to do. Then I move on to given birthday celebrated today should return current age plus 1. So it's my birthday. I've got 5 test cases here. They're kind of from 2 different input segments. The first one is a normal non-leap year type of scenario, 1, 2, and 3. The next 2 are dealing with a leap year type of scenario. But they all feed into that same equivalence partition. The next test is calculate given birthday 1 month away should return current age. So what I've done here is I'm focusing on years. And now that I've solved years, I'm moving on to months. I'm solving that portion of the problem. Using my 3 inputs, because remember we're using triangulation. We're kind of in more of a medium gear. We're starting to understand things. Maybe we're probably starting off in low gear, quite honestly. And it seems simple until you get into it. And sometimes you can turn yourself into circles and make a mess of trying to solve this. Because we all know daytime is hard, especially just hard ever, actually always. So now that I've solved this month scenario, my next test is to take me on to solving a day. So once again, all of the inputs are dealing with 2 kind of specific segments, one for leap year and one for non-leap year. By the way, you can make the decision yourself whether you want to make the person born on a leap year's birthday the 28th of a non-leap year or the 1st of March in a non-leap year. That's completely up to you. There's no standard. So I went year, month, day, working my way through each portion of the problem, drilling into more and more detail as I go. Now, the temptation here is always to kind of say, oh, it's obvious, I'll just do this, or I'll write a test and write a whole bunch of code. Remember, we're breaking the cycle of TDD. We're breaking those laws of TDD. No more code than sufficient to make the one failing test pass. Don't overthink the problem. Sometimes we put too much accidental complexity into our solutions, and that just makes it hard to work with as it ages. And then finally, you have the scenario that you're not born yet. I don't know why you'd be calculating, maybe today to capture error, but the birthday is before the current day, so there's no possibility that you actually have a birthday. And then you see the factory method here to actually create the SOTs. These tests are a bit old. I think I started this 3.5 years ago. Used a slightly different naming style then. I mean, the irony being that SOT's actually where it all started. That was kind of the original advice. But it allows me to pull out that common setup, especially when you start potentially needing to inject dependencies and that kind of thing. It's a really useful technique to have that all put into one place. Done a lot of refactoring where I haven't, and not a good move. So that's it. We start at 0. Simplest case. We move on to today. We move on to the months, having solved the years. We move on to the days, and we've solved the problem. It's not a lot of code. In fact, I would say it's a pretty simple solution. There's maybe a few lines that wouldn't seem quite intuitive, but there are other ways of solving it. That solution and that method I'm talking about was something that was refactored too. So it starts off by calling calculate age. All calculate age does is just subtract the years. Kind of like you'd do in your head if someone asked you how old you were. Then we check to see if the birthday's happened yet. So that's where we start to get into that month and day type of thinking. And if it hasn't happened yet this year, obviously I need to subtract 1. To check if it's happened, I basically take my age times make a negative version of my age and rewind back to what my birthday should be. Or sorry, my date of birth should be. So then I would say, okay, my date of birth compared to my actual birthday, as this date before my birthday, that's all that line's saying. And if it is, like, okay, I haven't had a birthday yet. But if it's equal to or greater than, well, my birthday's happened. And that's all there is to it. Initially, this bit of code had a little bit to deal with the months and the days, but then, like I said, through some refactorings, I got here. Because I had a good test suite, and I knew, that each step represented one single concept, so a failure was related to one specific portion of the problem. And that's the advantage of thinking through TDD, is it's giving you small snippets to that problem, so you can always go back to a previously known good state and focus on just that bit that's not working for you. Whereas if you try to put everything into a handful of methods, it's a lot harder to understand what portion of the problem that particular test was focused on. So I'd appreciate it if you do the H calculator. If you haven't, try redoing it or completing it. If you have, in fact, actually, if you have, start from the beginning. Start from the beginning and work through it. You'll notice here I've got 14 tests because of leap year. I'd have a few less if it wasn't because of the leap year. Anyway, my code's up on GitHub. You're more than welcome to have a look. I really want you guys to focus on the naming. This is a hard one to come up with naming, so I don't mind if you kind of borrow, or as Pierre says, steal with your eyes, some of my implementation or whatnot, but take the steps to get there. I really want you to focus on slowing down and taking small steps and thinking through the problem a little bit by little bit. If you finish this, and there's still time, remember time box to 2 hours, you're more than welcome to carry on with the Mars rover Kata, which is another great problem to decompose into small steps. You can solve one direction, then the next, one command each way, a combination of two, and it really helps you kind of evolve a very elegant solution. Anyway, I hope you enjoy deliberate practice. I hope you start to understand a little bit more about TDD as a thinking tool. Not that there's anything wrong with being in a phase where you're wanting to write a handful of tests and stack test cases or theories on them. That's a very natural stopping off point. But we need to start to get more comfortable with taking the smaller steps with the practice and understanding what the various gears actually feel like, not just trying to run around in high gear all the time. All right, guys, have fun and go team!